Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Downing and this is my flight scenario presentation for Jacksonville. So a little bit about the scenario. The route is going to be a local flight in the Jacksonville area. The trip is going to be a 4-place single engine aircraft that I'm going to fly that is loaded to max gross weight with my CFI's family who is in town only for the weekend, riding along on a local flight lesson. I'm a private pilot with an instrument rating, training to be a CFI and commercial pilot. I'm almost done with my commercial training. I'm just finishing up the last few maneuver lessons before my CFI is going to sign me off to take my check ride. I've completed all of my flight training in Florida, so I'm used to navigating around afternoon thunderstorms. The aircraft is a Cessna 172S model with a G1000. It's the flight school's aircraft that I am used to flying very frequently, and it's been utilized throughout my commercial training. I've never flown with the aircraft fully loaded before. The environment, it's a sweltering day in Florida with very high humidity, and the flight is scheduled from 3 to 5 in the afternoon in late July. And there's also external pressures associated with this flight. This is the second to last flight before I can take my check ride. My CFI's family is from Maryland and only in town for the weekend, and they've always wanted to ride along on a flight to get to know what their son does for a living. So the plan for this flight is to stay in the local area around Jacksonville International. This is the second to last flight before I can take my check ride. My CFI's family is in town and only in town for this weekend. They've always wanted to have a ride along on a flight to get to know, to get a better idea of what their son does. And we're going to be departing Jacksonville, and the trip's going to be from about 1,500 local to 1,700 local. So this is an overview of the weather at the time of departure. So at Jacksonville, the METAR, we're seeing winds 110 at 12 knots, 10 statute miles of visibility. Clouds scattered at 4,200, and we shouldn't really be worried about the clouds above that because we won't be flying that high. Other than that, we can see that there was lightning in the distance to the northwest. And then the TAF, the things that we need to be worried about, it's going to be mostly VFR with light winds, but we can see that there's going to be thunderstorms in the vicinity and cumulonimbus scattered at 3,500 feet, so that's something that we need to be aware of. Also in the winds and temps aloft, we can see that as the altitude is increasing, the temperature is decreasing, so there's not going to be a temperature inversion. So we might not need to be as concerned about an unstable atmosphere, cumulonimbus clouds. Also, the lapse rate is only 2 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet, which is what we would typically need to see for a stable atmosphere. If it was decreasing 3 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet, we need to be concerned about an unstable atmosphere. And then this is the radar return around the time that we would be taking off. We can see that there is a lot of thunderstorms just to the west of Jacksonville and then to the northwest. But we can also see from the radar returns that the storms in the picture are moving to the north-northwest. So most of the weather should be moving out of the area. We can use the PAVE checklist to perceive hazards and mitigate risks associated with the flight. For the pilot, I'm a private pilot with an instrument rating, training to be a commercial pilot and CFI. The aircraft is a Cessna 172S model with a G1000. Flight school owns the plane, and it's one that I've used frequently, although I've never flown with it fully loaded before. The environment is a day VFR, hot day with thunderstorms forecast in the vicinity. However, the weather appears to be moving out of the area to the north-northwest. There's also external pressures associated with this flight because I'm wanting to make a good impression on my CFI whose family is visiting. I want to accomplish the flight, but make sure that the family who are not familiar with small aircraft are as comfortable as possible. So there is an external pressure to accomplish this flight within the allotted time. We can use the I'm Safe checklist as a personal checklist to assess fitness of flight. Illness, medication, there's not going to be either of those that are going to be affecting my fitness to fly. Stress, it's a day VFR flight, and there is external pressures to complete the trip to show the CFI's family a good time and show them what their son does for a living. And then alcohol, fatigue, and emotion will not affect my fitness to fly. Because this flight is going to be conducted at max gross weight, I also calculated the pressure altitude and the density altitude to ensure that we would be safe taking off and landing within a reasonable distance. So the calculated pressure altitude would be negative 180 and the density altitude would be 1,860. The 1,860 symbolizes the altitude that the aircraft would perform as it was rolling down the runway. And it also gives us a good indication of how bumpy the flight is going to be. I can, from personal experience flying in Florida, I can say 2,000 feet density altitude is about normal for during the summer. So then looking at the short field takeoff distance at 2,550 pounds, which is max gross weight, we can see that at sea level, we'd have a ground roll of 995 feet, or excuse me, at 30 degrees Celsius, which is what the METAR data showed. Our ground roll would be 1,070 feet, and the total feet to clear a 50-foot obstacle would be 1,810. Both of these would be plenty enough of runway to take off at Jacksonville. And then our landing distance at 2,550 feet, or max gross weight, at 30 degrees Celsius would be a ground roll of 605 feet, and a total feet to clear a 50-foot obstacle would be 1,380 feet. Again, plenty of distance for us landing at Jacksonville. So some things we'd want to consider for this flight. Thunderstorms are forecasted in the vicinity. However, the worst of the weather appears to be moving out of the area to the northwest. Because the flight will be conducted VFR, see and avoid of other aircraft and weather will be utilized. The G1000 is an advantage in this regard because of the advanced avionics that are available to us. Also, utilizing new avionics in flight to watch weather trends and traffic during the flight. And then finally, we could possibly wait a few hours for the rest of the weather to clear. This is going to be on the basis of arriving at the airport and just seeing what the weather's doing at the time. It is a summer afternoon in Florida, so not only is it hot, there's the chance for thunderstorms to seemingly pop up out of nowhere. However, summer evenings in Florida are usually cool with little wind and can make for an amazing flight late in the afternoon.